Native science is a term that defines an adaptive living knowledge. It is a study of the whole and includes spiritual, ethical, and social dimensions. Native science is specific to place and brings forth its knowledge of an evolving ecology in a process that sustains and depends relevancy over time. Bodies of knowledge held by the indigenous peoples of the earth share many of the same principles and also employ the precision and rigor associated with Western science. The difference between these two methods of knowing the world rests in the ways in which the world is perceived. These are the examples of indigenous science and technology.
There is a quality of consciousness that is brought to bear in the gathering of knowledge by native peoples. It is an awareness and unlived experience of a relational universe, where time and space are bound, and where time is nonlinear and described as movement within a flux of layers of flashing webs that appear and disappear in an infinity of patterns. It is those patterns and the harmony of their interconnectedness that guides the search for knowledge. It is the dedicated study of relationships that guides the creation of indigenous technologies and which provides a context to describe their characteristics.
What are the characteristics that are distinct to indigenous technology? First, indigenous technologies are recognized as animate, imbued with a breath of life. They live in a form of function having emerged from the realms of the invisible. Indigenous technologies are emerged from implicate order to reflect the art of skillful living. Indigenous technology is pragmatic. It is responsive and responsible to the ecology in which it lives. Indigenous technology attract to the learning spirits. They provide a learning ecology that supports the revitalization and transformation of awareness and knowledge. Indigenous technology is intended to enhance the ability to maintain the renewed balance and harmony within a multidimensional environment.
Indigenous technologies have the obligation to come into existence, to be used and to transform within an ethical space that is responsible to life in all its forms. The ability or capacity to make something does not constitute a valid reason for its existence. Indigenous technology is coherent with the natural order. Indigenous technology has a different life trajectory than a fax machine. The pokea, a carved Polynesian trumpet, will not find itself in a landfill replaced with something sleeker and faster. Its efficacy has not diminished over thousands of years of use. The pokea is an authentic example of technological design coherent with the natural order. Indigenous technologies have intrinsic value because we know their ancestry, where they came from, what their place is in our world. We know they will transform and pass from this place to return to the realms of energies.
Throughout history, indigenous peoples have been responsible for the development of many technologies and have substantially contributed to science. Science is the pursuit of knowledge. Approaches to gathering the knowledge are culturally relative. Indigenous science incorporates traditional knowledge and indigenous perspectives, while non-indigenous science approaches are commonly recognized as Western science. Together, they contribute substantially to modern science. Although the value of integrating in this indigenous science with Western science has been recognized, we have only begun to scratch the surface of its benefits. Indigenous perspectives are holistic and founded upon interconnectedness, reciprocity, and the utmost respect for nature. Both Western and indigenous science approaches and perspectives have their strengths and can greatly complement one another. As indigenous scientists who specialize in combining traditional ecological knowledge with wildlife ecology research, I have come across many examples where blending both approaches has resulted in excellent contributions to modern science. Not surprisingly, in instances of indigenous science can be found embedded in numerous existing knowledge categories. Indigenous knowledge, TK, and traditional ecological knowledge and wisdom. Without knowledge, there can be no science. Thus, the definition of science should be broadened to include indigenous science. The intention of this video is to identify a vast body to indigenous science and science literature drawn from cultures other than Western society that provides great potential for enhancing our ability to develop more relevant science education programs with which all students can identify.